The Texas defensive line has been extraordinary here for the first two games of the 2023 season. One thing that I do want to talk about here in this upcoming video is the amount of talent that Texas has on this defensive line. A few of those players are not going to be here next year. Where does Texas go in the 2024 season after this talent leaves and goes into the NFL? But first off, folks, if you enjoy this content that is coming to you on a daily basis from the NinosCorner Sports Podcast, go like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It helps me grow the channel a lot. And folks, if you're listening to this on a streaming podcast platform, whether it is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, like, comment, and subscribe, and it will help me grow this channel a lot, folks. Love it, love it, love it. But folks, back to the question at hand. The Texas defensive line. What's next? Who's next? Folks, this year, starting on the defensive line at that jack position, we got Barron Sorrell. At the defensive tackles, folks, Alfred Collins, Sweat, Byron Murphy. Those are the three guys that are starting at the defensive tackle / nose tackle. So Alfred Collins and Sweat are at your DT, and your nose tackle is Byron Murphy. At your defensive end, at that buck position, you got Ethan Burke. So, folks, out of those five guys who are the starters at those positions, the three that are probably going to be leaving here after this season is going to be Sweat, Collins, and Murphy. Now, Sweat being the 6'4", 362-pound defensive tackle here at Texas with quick feet. I'm telling you, folks, him coming back this year was outstanding. He could have probably went to the league last year just off size and measurables alone, and people just understanding the upside. But I think he staying in next year's made himself a lot of money because people are getting to see him play his style of ball. And he was on the national stage this year, and everybody was screaming his name. You had Kirk Herbstreit was actually speaking of his name. Desmond Howard. I mean, every national media pundit said T'Vondre Sweat was a guy that you have to look at. And I think having his name ring like that this year, so far in these first two games has been outstanding for him, especially with the performance that the Texas defense put out there in the field against Alabama, and with him kind of being the bell cow for that defense and the dog on that defensive line. We got a bunch of dogs. Him and Murphy are no kidding dogs for that line. But let's say, for instance, if Sweat leaves and if Byron Murphy leaves and if Alfred Collins leaves, folks, who are we going to have on that defensive line that is going to step up and do great things? One thing I will say, having Barron Sorrell at the jack and then having Ethan Burke at the other defensive end, folks, this is going to be outstanding for Texas because we're seeing exactly on the edges what we're able to do, right? But I want to get back to the edges a little bit later on. I want to concentrate on the three interior linemen and Collins, Sweat, and Murphy, and who is going to take those places and positions. If Alfred Collins leaves, the next person in line is Vernon Broughton. And folks, Vernon Broughton, when you take a look at Vernon Broughton and see what he has done over these first two games, he's popping off the film. He's popping off the film, man. Talking to Nash, Nash Talks Texas. We were talking about about Broughton here after the first game. And we were just like, you got to be kidding me. Him and Jay Bass, we were just talking about that in the text line that we all have going on. I was like, Broughton looks legit. There's a play that it showed Sweat beating a double team, great hand movement, great hand placement, great footwork, beats a double team, and he goes in for the tackle. Everybody is focusing on that one play. But it was the guy next to him that I saw. I was like, wow. And Nash pointed out to me, he was like, do you see what Broughton just did? First off, he was like, who was 45's Broughton? It's like, yeah, that's Broughton, man. Like, it was awesome to see the maturation process of him. And now, folks, this tells you that we have recruits and prospects that come in, and it's the new shiny toy, and we want these prospects to be outstanding from day one. It doesn't happen like that for everybody. Everybody's not a Kelvin Banks Jr., right? Everybody is not somebody who's going to come in and be an outstanding player from day one. Everybody's not an Ant Hill, right? Everybody's not that. Sometimes it takes players more time to develop. And those are things that we're seeing. And Vernon Broughton has been developed, and he looks very good. He looks very good. So if we got to step in next year and Collins is gone and Broughton is the one who is starting at that DT, man, we're gonna be just fine. Now it's talking about who is going to be able to back these guys up, right? So if Sweat leaves, we got Bledsoe who backs him up, but Bledsoe's a little bit slight. He's about 255, 260 now. So him playing on the interior is going to be something to see. But one person that I don't think we have mentioned yet is Sadir Mitchell. Sadir Mitchell is going to be another one of those guys who's going to do some great things as well too. He's a guy that's around 340 pounds right now, who can also probably step in, who has great nimble feet, great hand placement, great footwork, that can step in and be that Sweat for 2024 season. So look, we got options. Bledsoe is a guy that has NFL talent screaming all over. He's athletic. He's quick. Big. He's big. He's quick. He's athletic. Really good player. NFL kind of talent. And then you got Sadir Mitchell, who everybody and their mother fought for. We had to pry him away from Georgia. Georgia wanted him. We wanted him. And it was a dogfight in that recruitment. Texas wins out on that. Sadir Mitchell's going to be a stud here. You don't find guys who are that big with that good of footwork. They don't grow on trees every day, folks. We got a good one in Sadir Mitchell. Then at the nose tackle, if Byron Murphy does decide to leave and enter the draft in the 2023 season, who's backing him up, folks? We got Aaron Bryant out of Mississippi. Man, good player. He's another player that is maturing. I think he's up to about 320 pounds or so now, 310, 320 or so. But he's another guy that is maturing. And then we got Trill Carter, man. Trill Carter being the guy that came from Minnesota. I think he has an injury now, so he's kind of nursing that, but he is playing, but he's not at a full 100. Like he's not at basically full strength right now. But Trill Carter is going to be one of those guys that we're going to speak a lot of as this season goes on, and he has an extra year to play, so we're going to speak a lot of him next year too as well. So we're going to be just fine, folks, at that defensive line. Now, also the recruits that are coming in. We're talking about where's the beef, right? Where are those big bodies like we have right now in a Sweat, in a Byron Murphy, Sweat being 360, Byron Murphy being about 315 or so, right? Where are we getting those big bodies? Well, we got 3 of them coming into Texas in the 2024 class. Now, we're probably not going to ask them to play a lot, if any, in their freshman year, but they're going to be in the lab, in the back in the lab, getting ready, letting their body mature and getting ready to come in for their second year, unless they're freaks coming in early. Now, we've heard that Alex January is one of those guys we're talking about out of Duncanville High School, 6'4", 320-pound interior offensive lineman. Alex January is going to be one of those guys who is taking classes right now to be an early enrollee. He comes in here in January, and he gets a step up, a leg up on being one of those players who could possibly contribute early. Now, if he can come in and contribute early and play in certain situations where he might not get 20 or 30 snaps a game, but maybe he gets 10 snaps a game. But for those 10 snaps, you're getting everything you can get from a 320-pound guy. And I guarantee you, once he gets here on campus, his weight's going to go up, but he's going to gain weight, but gain good weight, and being in that Torrey Becton strength and conditioning program. Another player, folks, is DeAndre Robinson, man, out of Florida, out of Orlando, Florida. Another guy who's 320 pounds, I think over 60 offers, folks. Every SEC school wanted them. Another 4-star guy that is a 320-pound monster that can, once he gets here as well, folks, he's going to be one of those guys that he's going to have his body mature and put on good weight as well. Not sure if Robinson is going to be an early enrollee or not, but just goes to show that we are building those trenches, getting ready for the SEC. And then I don't want to forget about one of my favorite players is Melvin Hills, man, out of Lafayette, Louisiana. And I tell you what, he's not a bigger guy like Alex January and also Robinson, but he's a guy that I think is going to be able to fluctuate on that line and play multiple positions. He's going to be one of those guys who's I think he's a value pick. He's a value guy because you will be able to line him up at nose tackle, defensive tackle, and even if you got to put him on the edge, sometimes he can do that too. Very athletic, very physical guy too as well. He's weighing in now at about 270 pounds right now in high school. Now, Those are your defensive linemen, the interior. So I think we got that pretty sewed up here. We're gonna have a two deep next year. Vernon Broughton, Sadir Mitchell, Jeray Bledsoe, Aaron Bryant, Terrell Carter. I mean, that's gonna be your two deep for the most part, and those interior off on those interior defensive linemen. But folks, now let's look at the edges. We're not losing anybody on the edges, folks. Matter of fact, we're gaining a ton of talent. And I'm telling you, that talent on the edges is looking good. We saw what Barron Sorrell has done in these 2 years here at Texas. Barron Sorrell is looking real good. Looking real good. All right. Playing that jack. The other side, Ethan Burke. We're seeing Ethan Burke is looking like one of the best pass rushers in the Big 12 right now. Had a hell of a game against Alabama. Took that freshman, Caden Proctor, to school. I'm telling you, outstanding game by Ethan Burke. Justice Finkley, one of my favorite players, smart guy, physical guy, just has that demeanor and attitude. Great family, mother and father are awesome. Just a really good family, and he's a great kid. But also, I tell you, on that field, he's mean. He's mean. He might not be the pass rusher that we're all like wanting to clamor for as a pass rusher, but he can do it, folks. And he's really good against the run. And I tell you, for being a little bit undersized on that edge, he's not a small guy, but he's so physical. And sometimes I think he's better with his hands in the dirt because he gets such great leverage at about 6'2", 255 pounds as well. He's an all-around good player. And I'm telling you, at that jack position behind Barron Sorrell, Chris Ross. Chris Ross has been found money. He's been gold. He was one of those guys that I think we thought Texas fans was going to be able to move to the inside once he got to college, pick up the weight and be that guy. He's quick and he has stayed on the outside. Chris Ross looks good. Looks good. Man, we're looking good at the edge. Now, you might be asking, how can we get better at the edge? Well, I'm going to tell you how we're going to get better at the edge. We just picked up 2 commitments for this 2024 class as well. We got Zena Umeozulu. We got Colin Simmons. 2 of the top rushers in the state. Colin Simmons being the best edge rusher in the country. Both committed to the 2024 class here at the University of Texas. You got to love it. You're just stacking talent. Texas is doing their thing. Stacking talent on the line. Now, folks, you might be asking, why is this so important? This is very important for the simple fact that we all understand what we're doing. We understand the assignment for 2024. We're going to the SEC. And in the SEC, you got to have trenches. You got to have the trenches. You got to be physical on the offensive line and the defensive line. And you really want to be physical on the defensive line because defense is one thing that carries in a game. On the road, at home, down 15, up 15, defense carries, right? Offense can be on and off sometimes. Defense usually carries throughout the season. And we're seeing the PK defense and how stacked they are this year, how disciplined they are this year, and especially in the lines in the fronts, and seeing how physical they are. And if Texas can continue the development process of the players that they have and are bringing in to this program before they enter into the SEC in 2024, I look for nothing but great things to happen for this Texas squad. So with that question being posed, what's next for this Texas defensive line if the likes of Tavondre Sweat, Alfred Collins, and Byron Murphy end up going to the league? Folks, we have a nice plethora of talent on that line. Vernon Broughton, Sadir Mitchell, Jeray Bledsoe, Aaron Bryant, Trill Carter, and then on the edges, Barron Sorrell, Chris Ross, Jamon Tapp, Ethan Burke, Justice Finkley. We got a guy named Colton Vasic, who is a Westlake kid who's just in the weight room now. 6'6", 245. Next year, he'll probably be 260. Long, rangy guy. Think about Ethan Burke and how we see how Ethan Burke is. and seeing just how he has been able to transition his body and become a guy that can play. And now we're seeing Colton Vasek is probably going to be one of those guys that's going to be able to do that too next year. And so, folks, the funny thing about this is last year, Ethan Burke, we had to play Ethan Burke because we needed him. We're so stacked at this position now that we can literally let a guy like Colton Vasek, red shirt, not have to worry about playing, get his body healthy because he's playing a lot of football in high school. Let him basically have a year off of playing real football to get his body ready for the SEC next year, to make sure his body matures right, and we don't just throw him to the wolves too early. Something that Texas has been doing for quite some time because we have not been able to stack the talent on those lines. We have been waiting. We have been basically having to take in our 5-star guys and our high 4-star guys and asking them to do things immediately. And that's something that this coaching staff is not having to do because we are stacking talent and developing talent that was already here. And now when that talent goes, the talent that we have behind them, we are developing as well. You got to love it. Outstanding. Now, folks, I mentioned the edges that are already on here on campus. But I didn't even mention again the two that we have coming in Zena, Umeozulu, and Colin Simmons, folks. Those two guys are coming in here as edges at the University of Texas. And one other player that's going to be a linebacker next year, but he is going to be one of those guys that is going to play all over the field. And that's Anthony Hill. Coach PK last year met with Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. What went on in those conversations? Don't know. But my best guess was, how does PK weaponize the Marvion Overshawn in the 2022 season to basically mimic a guy like Michael Parsons? That was my key take on that. And I talked to Texas Football Talk last year about that, and I was like, I think that has to be the reason. How do I get my stud linebacker to be like that guy, to be like number 11 for the Cowboys? How do I make that happen? Well, now, all that knowledge that he probably got from Dan Quinn, he no kidding has a guy that has played linebacker his entire life. Overshawn went from safety to linebacker, and that progression was something that had to grow and get better and better every year. And we saw it get better. And Overshawn now is earning checks, a high draft pick for the Dallas Cowboys. Great player here at Texas. But Anthony Hill, 5-star at linebacker, it's just something different about him. He's a guy that is born and bred to play linebacker and has been doing it pretty much his entire life. And now we are seeing him all over the field, a la a Michael Parsons, where he's rushing the passer, he's stopping the run. He had 22 plays against Alabama. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks in 22 plays. Saw him drop back in coverage, spied Jalen Milroe. He had the speed, the acceleration to keep up with Milroe, force him out of bounds, or sack him, or tackle him for a loss, or whatever needed to get done. This is an 18-year-old kid at 230 to 235 pounds who was able to contain Jalen Milroe, who was probably the most explosive athlete on that field Saturday night. So when we talk about this Texas defensive line, folks, and yes, it was the most physical unit, I think, on the field against Alabama, and so far this season for the Texas Longhorns. And we understand that we're probably going to lose 3 of our starters on that line. And what happens to Texas if that happens? Folks, we're in good hands. We're in good hands because of the coaching staff we have here that has been developing this talent. We're in good hands because of the great recruiting that has been done for this line. We are in great hands because our coaches know how to find hidden gems, know how to find great talent, and develop them. Now, I just talked about the 2024 recruits, but I didn't say anything about the 2023 guys. I didn't say anything about Akana, LaFau, who's a linebacker but can do, sort of those same things at Hill. He can play him kind of all over the place too. I didn't talk about a Darian Gillette. I mean, folks, we have talent, folks. We have talent. I didn't talk about a Jelani McDonald, who People say he might be playing cornerback, maybe star, maybe safety, maybe linebacker. He is that talented. NFL talent all across the board. And of course, I know I'm missing some people. We're that stacked at the edge position, and those guys are just waiting their turn to do their thing. We are cooking with hot grease, Longhorns. I'm loving it. So, on that note, folks, I'm going to end this podcast like I end all of them. Do you. Don't be afraid to fail. Outgrow your environment. Understand your brilliance. Nino's Corner. I'm out. And those horns, they always up. Hook 'em.